we're doctors. We can shut you up. We'll stop you complaining, buddy.
Hello, everybody. This is Ryan over at High Carb Regenerator. Welcome to my channel. So, what you're about to see is an interview I did with Dr. John McDougall. So he's written quite a few books. I think the two most popular is The Maximum Weight Loss and The Starch Solution. Those are great books. He's been on thousands of videos, whether it's on YouTube or on regular TV. You've probably seen him at some point in your life. I think most people who watch his channel already know who he is. And don't forget to, leave any comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and enjoy the video.
I just need to know who you are.
Yeah, so I was 405 pounds at one point, and I was doing kind of a keto life, and I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and I got off the train station at, I don't know if you've ever been to Philly, but there's this big train hub at Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and there was this crazy guy there. He has these green smoothies, and he was handing them out to me, and he kind of came up to me, and he's like, "You're really overweight." He's like, I think I could help. I think I could help you.
Yeah.
And he has this. He still does to this day. He's about 75 or 6 now, and he's got this place called Arnold's Way. It's like a vegan cafe, and so he brought me in, and he kind of showed me raw vegan. And I said, you know what? I got nothing else to lose. The keto was really getting bad. I initially had lost a ton of weight doing keto. I had done it for about 10 years. My liver was starting to go. My kidneys were starting to go. I was starting smelling like ammonia all the time. I was waking up vomiting stomach acid, and it was miserable all the way around. And I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. And I did. And I did raw vegan for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I lost 145 pounds-ish in that amount of time. And but I got kind of tired of doing raw vegan. I still do mostly raw, but and then I had actually come across the Starch Solution. I had just happened to see it. I was doing a lot on eBay at the time, and I was seeing your book at the thrift store once in a while, and I said, you know what, I'll pick this up. I gotta read it, and I did, and I really liked a lot of what was you had to say in your book. And it came to me later that you had written The Maximum Weight Loss. I actually didn't even know that book existed. I just saw the Starch Solution more often, and that's kind of my backstory.
Well, that's a good story. I like that.
Yeah.
So you're doing well now. So you've included some more starches in your diet.
I do. I mean, I Irish, so I do a lot with potatoes, and I do a fair bit with rice. Not as much with pasta, but mostly rice and potatoes.
Well, we also have something called the Maximum Weight Loss Program, where we focus on more raw green and yellow vegetables.
Yeah.
And we also have Mary's Mini Diet, where we focus on this is boredom, simplicity, repetitiveness.
Yeah.
And both of those are good tools to hurry up weight loss. So you might want to take some advantage of that. But why I recommend a starch-based diet is because, for my patients, it's a lifetime. Raw food is a lot of work. It is a great effort to get enough calories in. That's one of the biggest problems because, like, for example, cabbage, you got to eat 22 pounds of cabbage to get enough calories in.
Yeah.
So that's a difficulty. And people need energy, and it's real hard to get enough sugar energy to like run a race, etc. And the other, I think probably the best evidence that a starch-based diet is right for you and everybody else is that essentially everybody who's lived on this planet, for the last couple million years, everybody who's lived on this planet has lived on a starch-based diet, with rare exceptions, and those being people who lived at the extremes of the environment, like Inuit Eskimos, or the royalty, which lived at the extremes of society, like the kings and queens and the aristocrats of the past, and they were sick and overweight. In both instances, they were not in the best of health. So that's why I recommend a starch-based diet, is because that's what people have always done and what they always will do if they get it right. Corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, wheat, pasta, breads, etc. Beans, peas, and lentils.
And I had a couple of questions along that, because I've seen a lot of your videos over the time. And as far as the maximum weight loss goes, I've actually seen you say that you kind of wish you never wrote the book. And I
never wanted to be known as a diet doctor. That's the thing.
Okay.
I always wanted to be known as a board certified internist that took care of really sick people with, 90% of their heart gone or 90% of their kidneys gone. And I got forced into being a diet doctor back in 1984 because so many of my followers were interested in weight loss. And that's what I meant by saying it is, I just didn't want that kind of label. Being a diet doctor to me is a little unprofessional. And I thought somehow I should keep my professional nature, but I've learned since then it's not necessary. So.
Yeah, because it seems to me a lot of people are going a little too extreme with the, like going like 70-30, 70 non-starchy, 30 starchy. Yeah, and I think that
I warn against that.
What's that?
I warn against that.
You warn against that?
No, I warn against it.
Oh, warn against it. Yeah, I it's just because I actually tried the 50-50 plate in 2020, actually. And in 2020, and I actually gained weight because I was hungry the entire time. I couldn't do it, but I did do really well on the starch solution.
Good. Well, that's the thing, is you've got to satisfy hunger. What people don't realize is that hunger is an extremely powerful, not to be denied drive for a good reason. You got to get food to live. It's survival. It's just a natural state. So the hunger drive is designed so it cannot be beaten except by extreme measures, like going on bizarre diets like the low-carb diet, or taking drugs like the GLP-1 agonists, or Ozempic.
Yeah,
Those type of drugs are so popular. That's the only way that you can fight the hunger drive and have any chance of winning, is by doing really, really bizarre, dangerous stuff.
And so why? What's up?
Go give in. Give in to your hunger.
You give in every time.
Yeah, just eat the food that has caused 100 billion people to be trim and healthy and not have heart disease or breast cancer throughout eons of time. I mean, just give in. We're starch eaters, starchivores, starchitarians. That's it.
And along those lines, I've got a lot of people come in. They see the pictures of how much weight I've lost, and they ask me questions. One of the ones I can never answer is when people come into eating mostly starch, they say they're tired all the time. What would cause that?
I really don't. Well, I think it's psychological. We're taught that meat equals strength, and you have to get over that barrier. The other thing that happens is when people switch from a glob of fat and a pile of meat in their stomach to potatoes and rice in their stomach, they feel hungry. They don't feel full. They don't feel satisfied until they adjust it. I call this the Chinese restaurant syndrome, because I used to notice it when I was on the American diet. When I go to a Chinese restaurant, I never felt satisfied because I didn't have my glob of fat and my lump of meat, which I was used to. So it takes some adjustment. And as far as energy goes, essentially all endurance athletes follow a starch-based diet. On our program, we have one of the most famous athletes of all time, and that's Carl Lewis, who set the world record for the 100-meter dash. He did it on the McDougall program. He set 3 long jump records that, as far as I know, haven't been beaten yet. He won marathons, or what are they called, relay races, when he was like 35 years old. And we have many athletes that have similar results because they have learned that energy comes from sugar, from carbohydrates. When I mention sugar, people think of table sugar.
Yeah. Well,
that's not so wrong. I mean, we use a little table sugar in our program, but I really mean sugar in terms of rice, corn, and potatoes, and that kind of sugar. That's what real nature sugar is. The other stuff, it occurs occasionally in our environment, like in terms of a beehive or maple syrup from a tree, but otherwise you don't find sugar as a isolated concentrated ingredient in nature. You have to process to get it. So anyway, I think it's just a temporary thing. Again, other analogies I give people to help with strength idea is in my lifetime, almost my lifetime, certainly in my parents' lifetime, we almost lost World War II to starch eaters.
Yep.
Okay. And we did lose the Vietnamese conflict to starch eaters. So when you talk about energy, and you really have to rethink the whole thing. It's a psychological problem, and one that just requires little adjustment. So typically people report that they not only feel more satisfied as they should, which the science says, because it's carbohydrate, it's sugar, it's starch that satisfies the hunger drive. That's what the research shows. That's what your tongue tastes, is starch and sugar. It loves it. Doesn't like fat. And so everything adds up to the fact that the human diet is a starch-based diet. All the science, all the religious teachings, all the historical lessons, they all say that a starch-based diet is what human beings should have eaten, will eat in the future, whether they do it by choice or not. We're heading towards a society where starch will be the dominant fuel. And the reason is because we're going through tremendous climate changes, global warming, they call it. And we're not going to have the crops available to feed animals anymore. We're going to have to eat the crops ourselves, at least for a period of time until they're not available. So it's only going to be a couple of years before we're faced with a situation where you don't have any other choice but to eat rice or potatoes, because you can't afford to feed them to your cows and pigs. Your family is starving, and that's what you'll resort to, is eating starch. And so you just go back to the future. What do you think? Back to the future. It's just one U-turn is what it is.
Yeah.
This is as I ask people to think about it, this is just a blip in human history.
Yeah.
We're talking about a diet that's been popular for no more than 50 or at most 150 years. And otherwise, there was a minuscule number of people who followed the diet. Only in the last 50 to 150 years.
Yeah.
That we've been eating like kings and queens.
Yeah, and I know there's Pritikin talked about back in the ancient Egyptian days when the royalty were sick, they would start feeding them the peasant diet and they would get better, and then they would just go back to eating the royalty food again.
Yeah, I don't know that reference. If you have that reference, send it to me.
Oh yeah, it's in a video. I'll send you the video. It's like a 6-hour long video.
I knew Nathan Pritikin.
I had seen you interviewed him one time.
Well, I've interviewed him. Yeah, it's the only interview that exists. The only interview, as far as I've ever heard of or seen, of Nathan Pritikin I did when I was a young man. So yeah, I did that. Not only that, the only introduction to a book he ever wrote was to my book.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that's the McDougall Plan. So we go back a long way. Nathan Pritikin is one of my mentors. I always give him credit, as I do my 3 other mentors, whose shoulders I stand on.
And speaking of other mentors, I think Dr. Walter Kempner is one, and he used a lot of sugar. And there has been some contradictions with you, with the way you've talked about sugar, as far as I've seen in the videos. About you seem pro sugar sometimes, and then against sugar other times. But it seems like he had pretty miraculous results with using table sugar.
Well, the reason he fed his patients table sugar is they were really, really sick. And if you get calories from protein, it's a tremendous amount of work on the liver and kidneys. So, most of his patients had compromised systems, including the liver and kidneys. So the only way you can get calories in without potassium, which kills kidney patients, and without protein, which is a serious burden on kidney and liver patients, is to feed table sugar. It's protein and potassium free. And that's why he did it. It had no negative consequences, not even tooth decay, as far as I know, from his secondary personal communications. His patients did not suffer from tooth decay, although I warn that simple sugar will help rot your teeth. So the other thing is the simple sugar is empty calories. So it doesn't bring in any other vital nutrients.
All right, so I did reach out to McDougall after the interview because I wanted to ask him about sugar and his statement that it's empty calories. Because if you really think about it, a carbohydrate is a nutrient, and it's one of the three main, macronutrients. So sugar should be a nutrient, right? So I reached out to him. I basically kind of said that exact same thing, and then I let him know about the experiment that I did last year, where I did the pound a day of sugar, and I doubled my testosterone, my T4 went up, and all of my hormone markers that I had tested at that time actually increased like you would want them to. And he basically just wrote back that, look, sugar isn't a health food. It's not a superfood, and that he wasn't going to make any comment on the experiment that I did with myself. So he didn't want to touch it, but I know that Durian Rider wanted to ask him that question. I actually meant to ask him that question. I actually have it written down, and I forgot to ask him at that time. So anyway, that's his response to that. I don't really agree, but I'm not the doctor.
And the other thing about simple sugar is it raises triglycerides, the fats in your blood. And I don't think it's good for weight loss. I don't think it discourages weight loss, but it's calories, so it counts. And the food tastes better with sugar on it. So you're going to eat more of it. If you put sugar and salt on the food, you're going to eat more of it. And, that's one of my goals, is to get my patients to eat more, not less, but more, because they need to satisfy their hunger drive. They need to get on with their life. They need to start appreciating the new foods. And so what we do is we run a 12-day telemedicine program where we take people from all over the world. We got a program coming up here this Friday, which is full.
Okay.
And in this program, we'll take care of people from Europe, from Asia. It's all telemedicine. It's by the internet. It's an amazing world we live in.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Just that you and I can talk like this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, and we can do this. That is amazing.
And anyway, that's fatigue is not a real issue. It's just an adjustment issue people have to get around.
Yeah, I never really did think about that, but if you go to a Chinese restaurant, it is kind of like that bottomless pit type scenario.
But now, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, or I do, in fact, that's all I eat. I mean, I basically, I eat an Asian recipe at least 2 or 3 times a week. And that's, I don't have anything else. I don't have oil in it or animal foods in it, or, I don't even need to have a chocolate ice cream dairy-free afterwards.
Yeah,
I'm still satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so it's just getting adjusted. That's all. Takes a couple of days.
And so you wrote the maximum weight loss. Why did you write the Starch solution then? If the maximum weight loss was where it was?
That's a good question. My son, who's a professor of medicine at OHSU, he's a medical doctor. He, of course, has read most of my books. And when he read the Starch solution, he said, "Dad, why did you bother? You already said it all in the McDougall plan."
Yeah.
Which I'd written about 30 years before. Well, I said, "Son, I'm a better writer. I'm a better communicator. And I have the facts more clearly organized to tell the story, I think, in a better way." And the Starch solution has been extremely successful. It runs on the best-selling lists all over the world. And it's a big seller every place. It's 12 years old. So I would have to say that of any book that I've written, that's the one to start with. But then again, you'll read the plan, you'll say, "Hey, you already said it. You said new things," or you read the book on heart disease or breast cancer, women, or, you can always tell the same story so many ways. And the story is real simple. I want to give it to you, Ryan. I want to give it to you in 2 sentences. With the McDougall program, 2 sentences. The McDougall program is based on starches, vegetables, and fruits. The McDougall program does not include animal products or free oils, concentrated oils. That's it. That's the diet. And everything else is just an extension of those 2 sentences.
Because it seems to me that most of the people who talk about Starch solution always take out the 50-50 plate. And I think that's doing kind of a disservice to a lot of people, because I think people are getting too extreme with it.
Well, I'm into it for a lifetime. I've been eating this way for more than half a century. I was almost dead in my teens and 20s because of the way I ate. And then I got a revolution back in 1927. Or excuse me, when I was 27 years old, 1927. It was actually 1977, about 1977. I had been exposed to a whole different population of people when I was a sugar plantation doctor. And what I observed back between 1973 and 1976 was that my 5,000 patients, who were Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Filipino, in the first generation, those who were raised and learned a diet of starch, they were always healthy. They lived into their 80s and 90s. They were having families in their 60s and 70s. The men were. And, that's the way I wanted to live. I decided that I wanted to emulate my patients who were in good health, because I saw that they lost the immunity to obesity and disease as they progressed to the second and third and fourth generation, and they were exposed to Western eating. The kids got fatter and sicker. That's plain and simple. It's right before my eyes, as they ate a more well-balanced diet. Mm-hmm. I came about this knowledge in some very personal ways. I've earned the right to talk about this, not only because of, my medical training. I'm a board certified internist. The fact that I've taken care of over 12,000 patients, 6,000 in a live-in situation, well, probably 7,000 in a live-in situation now. And I have a passion about science and reading scientific journals. And, I've come a long way in 55 years. So,
yeah. Nathan Pritikin, I saw that I actually have all of his books, and in one of his books, he mentioned that balanced diet is absolute nonsense. What is your thought on this new term, basically, that kind of started around the 70s, 80s, of the balanced diet, the balanced diet? What do you think it's needed?
I think it gives you a license to sell anything to anybody. A balanced diet, good grief, you got to include the basic four, right? So you have to have a big chunk of it dairy and a big chunk meat. It's created by industry.
Yep.
The basic four in Japan back in the 1940s and 1950s would have been a bizarre concept to eat that much meat or to drink dairy at all. They're lactose intolerant. They laughed at you.
Yeah.
But it was industry that has promoted it. And it started probably after World War II. And then it became a big issue after the Surgeon General's report in 1964. Luther Terry told us that smoking cigarettes would kill us. Mm. Surgeon General's report on smoking and health back in 1964, Luther Terry. Then Sierra Coop in 1977, along with Halstead and a bunch of other researchers, they put together the dietary goals of the United States in 1977. Industry was not going to suffer the same thing they suffered with cigarettes. And so they went full force against government interference in terms of diet. They're not going to destroy the cigarette like we destroyed the cigarette industry. We're not going to let the food industry go down that way. And so starting in 1977, they got the dietary goals changed, in favor of their industries. Lots of money. And since then, they have worked hard, which have been 50 years. They've been almost 45 years. They've been working full time, as much money as they can afford, put into convincing people that they need to eat a diet that kills them and kills the planet. And they've succeeded. But we're going to take it back. Yes, we are, with guys like you who discover the truth.
Yeah.
We need an army out there, Ryan.
Yep. We do. Yeah, we do. And, speaking of which, I'm really against proteins after seeing what it did to me. But you can't like this new protein craze. I know it started with Atkins and it just keeps on escalating. It has to die out. But, what do you tell people about protein?
It is the most evil of all nutrients. in terms of causing detriments to your health and detriments to the planet. At first you got to start out by understanding that there's never, ever, ever been a case of dietary protein deficiency ever described in the world literature. Does not exist. Nobody's ever had it. Nobody's ever eaten a diet too low in protein to run into a problem. It ain't so. There is no such thing. You have no friends with protein deficiency. They're lying to you. And that lie that you need protein as the most important nutrient spread by the meat, dairy, and egg industry, that lie gets compounded by all kinds of other messages towards profits. Like you need to drink dairy products to get calcium. Well, there's never been a case of calcium deficiency ever described. Or you need to eat fish to get omega-3 fats. Well, no fish ever made an omega-3 fat. They're all only made by plants. So you might as well eat the seaweed, or the algae. So that's where the fish get the omega-3 fats. So there's all kinds of these myths out there that are there to promote industry. It's called unique positioning. It's what all businesses do. They take something unique about their product and they advertise it to death. In this case, to the death of their customers, by telling them that they need to eat all this protein, all this calcium, and all this fish. They're destroying Earth and they're destroying people. And will it stop? I don't know. I used to think it would stop. 47 years ago, when I first started this kind of practice, I used to think it would be like just a matter of days, if not weeks, before everybody would come to the same understanding I had. It's been 50 years and nobody's lined up outside my door to figure out what I have, except you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no big lines to get in to see me.
Yeah, because you've got a lot of plant-based doctors now pushing flax and the chia seeds and all the wrong things and telling you can eat as many avocados as you want. And I'm like, you're basically just making a vegan keto scenario there. It boggles my mind. It just doesn't seem to end.
Well, I see that too, Ryan. There are many people, and I would call them friends, at least business friends, professional friends, not personal friends. There are many people out there that teach a plant food-based diet, but on the backside, they sell supplements because they know it's hard to make a living telling the truth. I've happened to figure out how to do it, but it hasn't been easy. Believe me, I'd have 10 times the income I have had over the years by selling things like heart surgery. So, but, I'm kind of a rare bird that is interested in their patients, number one, and in profits, number two. For most people in the medical business, it's profits, number one, and patients, number two at best. And I'm talking about 98% of my colleagues, Ryan.
Yeah.
2%, maybe you got it right. But 98% are still pushing dangerous, criminally expensive treatments. Plain and simple don't work. Heart surgery, breast amputation, aggressive diabetic therapies, all these autoimmune arthritis drugs. Yeah, they work in the sense of helping you with some symptoms or signs, but you never, ever, ever get a cure. Why? Because the problem isn't a lack of drugs or supplements.
Yeah.
The problem is the food. You've got to fix the food. You'll never catch up with the food as far as replacing it with supplements. It's just impossible. The plants are made of tens of thousands of different ingredients. It's been, 400 million years of evolution. So you're not going to do it, but you are going to make a lot of money if you push these things.
A lot of money.
And they do.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me.
They have to look at themselves in the mirror, and they know, Ryan, they know what I think about them, because I make it real clear that, my professional friends who push drugs, supplements, are hurting their patients. And I tell them that all the time. Maybe that's why they don't rush to my side a lot, a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah. It reminds me one time, this has nothing diet related, but one time I went to the doctor because my ankle was really hurting. And he's trying to give me antidepressants. I said, what does this have to do with my ankle hurting? And it just, the whole industry is so owned by the pharmaceutical. It is. unreal.
I kind of tell the story, medical doctors, they don't want to take any responsibility for you not getting well. So what we do is we have a system set up where we ping pong our patients from one specialist to another. So say you go in with chest pain, you see your general doctor. The general doctor says, you need to see the cardiologist. Cardiologist does an EKG and a heart scan and a bunch of other tests. Says, it's not my problem. Not my problem. Maybe it's your stomach. I want you to see the gastrointestinal specialist. Gastrointestinal specialist sticks a few tubes up and down your intestinal tract, says, can't find anything wrong. Not my problem. Maybe you should see the orthopedic, the rheumatologist, the bone specialist, and see whether or not they can solve your problem. And after they do all their tests and shenanigans, they say, it's not my problem. See, nobody wants to take responsibility. No. And then what they do, Ryan, is they send you off to the psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist blames you for the problem. And that's how we deal with it in the medical business. We don't take responsibility for our failures. We keep pushing it off on one person or another. It finally ends up with the patient who gets the responsibility. It's your problem, Ryan. You must be emotionally and mentally disturbed. And of course, life is tough. So it's not hard to convince somebody that they have these kinds of issues.
Yeah.
So, but it's wrong. It's a lie promoted by the drug-based medical business. If it ain't one drug, it's another drug. I used to do that as a sugar plantation doctor back before I changed my personal diet, or I was in the process of doing it back when I was in the Big Island of Hawaii. We had a type of service where people had all free medical care. And so my sugar plantation patients, they'd come in to see me, and I would end up seeing like 50 people and a half a day. But I had this routine that I would work with my patients. I'd say to them, they come in with a problem, depression, pain, et cetera, fatigue. I'd say, look, why don't you try this pill? If it doesn't work, come on back, we'll try another one. And if that didn't work when they came back, I told them, come on back, we'll try another one. I never ran out of pills, Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Ever. They ran out of patients. Maybe that's why they call them patients. And they stopped coming to see me. But this is the way the business works, just like I was practicing it back then. If that pill didn't work, let's try another one. And then it's your problem. Let's try it. It will get you so numb, you can't even think about your problem with all these psychiatric drugs.
Yep.
It'll stop you complaining, buddy. We're doctors. We can shut you up.
Yeah, I mean, I've got something going on with my foot right now. I had to have my talus replaced, and something else happened. And 5 foot doctors have told me 5 different things. I'm like, you guys.
How many of them told you to lose more weight?
Huh?
How many of them told you to lose more weight?
My Russian foot doctor, he's like, you're way too fat. He's like, you got to lose weight. I said, I'm 405, I'm 145 down. I'm getting there. I'm working on it.
No, you're getting there. You made great progress. And I don't want to say what I'm going to say next to in any way take away from the compliment of what you've accomplished. But in my November 15th newsletter, there's the Kempner weight charts.
Yeah.
Kempner weight charts talk about what an ideal weight would be. And I think it is, because I'm below that weight, and so are most of our patients. So how tall are you, Ryan?
I'm 6 foot.
Okay, well, a 6 foot man weighs 150 pounds or fewer. And if you have heart disease, diabetes, other chronic illnesses, Walter Kempner says you should be 10 to 15% lighter with your clothes on, 150 pounds. Now, I'm not going to ask you how far it is for you to get there, but I'm pretty darn sure with your enthusiasm and your knowledge that you're going to get there, and nobody's going to take it away from you once you do.
Yeah, but I lifted for years as well. So I do carry a rather large amount of muscle on me that most people would not be carrying around.
But my guess is you're going to be able to talk to me in a year or two, and you're going to say, I never believed I'd end up at that weight, and I did.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Speaking of that, my dad, who is significantly lighter than me, he's only 5'10" and maybe 180. But he's pre-diabetic now, and he's starting to do this basically keto diet. And I keep telling him, I said, you can't do that. It's just going to make it worse. What would you tell somebody like my father, pre-diabetic?
I would tell them to go to YouTube and put in the name McDougall and diabetes. And there's an hour and 10-minute lecture that I gave on diabetes, showing him that type 2 diabetes is 100% curable with weight loss. And our diet's the best way to lose weight. Showing him that the diabetic pills are dangerous. They increase your risk of dying and heart disease. That's what they do. They lower blood sugar, but they ruin your life.
Yeah.
And so he needs to learn that, but he's not going to learn it from you, Ryan. If he's like most dads and sons,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of communication that goes on there. So have him watch my video presentation on diabetes on YouTube. And there's presentations on heart disease, on breast cancer, on autoimmune diseases, on weight loss. And, if you like the things that Ryan and I are talking about, and you'd like to see me at my best or maybe my worst, I don't know, you decide. Give you lectures on things that I've been studying for half a century.
Yeah.
And you can find all that free on YouTube, and our website's free too. Which
I'm going to link that down below as well, just so they can just go there and check everything out.
Well, Ryan, and I would guess you came to this conclusion too. Several times a year, somebody will write me, usually some smart guy like you, business guy, been around a bit, says, I looked at your website and I figured there's got to be a gimmick. And I've been looking for a gimmick for the last 2 weeks and I can't find the gimmick. Where's the gimmick? So there's no gimmick. We give it away free. Basically, not our 12-day telemedicine program, but
yeah,
all the information is free. There's no gimmicks. Why are there no gimmicks? Because, as you learn my history, I was almost dead by the time I hit my mid-20s. I weighed 90 pounds more than I weigh now. I had a cholesterol of 330. I had a massive stroke. I had a major abdominal surgery. I was in big trouble by the time I was 25. So I wouldn't have made it past 30 probably if I wouldn't have discovered this. So I thought, as a payback, I would give it away. I have ever since. And initially, I have to admit, Ryan, I had to give it away because nobody would buy it. They could see no value in it. But nowadays, people buy it at full price.
Yeah.
They can see the value.
Yeah. There's one question that I've always wanted to ask ever since I've saw it. So T. Collin Campbell was actually asked about the fat you eat is the fat you wear. Mm-hmm. And he basically said that that's erroneous, that all you have to do is eat whole foods, whether it's, high fat or if it's avocados or nuts. He's like, and you'll be fine. What would your rebuttal be to that?
Well, that's not what people report to me. In fact, people who say they follow the McDougall diet and they're gaining weight or not losing weight, the first thing I ask them is, are you eating out? If they're eating out, they're not on the McDougall diet. Mm. The second thing I ask them is they're eating nuts, seeds, and avocados. And that's usually the case. I mean, Chef AJ, who you probably know quite well.
Yeah.
She couldn't lose the weight until she heard the message that this is starch you're supposed to eat, which is low fat. And nuts and seeds and avocados will cause you to gain weight. Now, somebody trim like T. Collin Campbell or Dr. Esselstyn or myself, I think I have to stop there because I can't think of any other. Well, I can think of a few other trim. Neil Bernard. There are a few other trim people on our side. And, for us, eating a little avocado, a few nuts. Ryan, every morning I have 2 handfuls of walnuts in my oatmeal.
Oh, wow.
I really do. I've been doing this for 5 years. I can't get over 140 pounds. I would like to gain another 5 or 10 pounds. Ryan, show me how to do it.
Steroids.
So, in a sense, I think that they're right, except I think there are some people out there, and I don't know the full story, except I do know the science supports what they say. Nuts and seeds and avocados are 70 to 90% fat. Actually 98% fat. And the fat you eat is the fat you wear. That's the way it goes. Where else would the fat go? In the toilet? You have greasy toilet bowl? Yeah, it goes there. On your skin, you have greasy skin and acne? Yeah, it goes there. But where else does the fat go? It goes to become the metabolic dollar when no food's available. the metabolic dollar for storage when the world is set to starve you to death, which is coming.
Yeah.
Then what happens is that fat storage is very valuable. It's a survival thing. But your dad's 180 pounds. He should be 5'10". He should be 145. He's got 45 pounds to lose before he could declare himself incurable. 100% of type 2 diabetics are curable. Now, he may not have type 2 diabetes. He may have what I call type 1.5 diabetes.
I did want to ask you about that, actually.
Yeah, in other words, pancreas is not producing up to where it should, or his cells aren't as sensitive to insulin as they should be. And that's a condition that probably the majority of my people who say they have type 2 diabetes, they really have, or at least half and half. They really aren't type 2 diabetic. They've had some compromise already to their pancreas and to their tissues. So those you can't get off insulin, but, you can really simplify their care and make them a lot healthier with taking them off the drugs.
So
we get 90%. We get 90% of people. This is documented in our research, uncontested. We get 90% of people to reduce or stop their medications, particularly blood pressure and diabetic medication. We've got data on nearly 2,000 people that show that it works. Most of these people shouldn't be on the drugs in the first place. And in the second place, we correct the problem that led to them being put on drugs.
Yeah.
Blood pressure, the diabetes, et cetera, pain pills.
Because
really too simple. That's the problem. Really too simple, Ryan. People want a gimmick. They want to be sold something. They want to be told it's all a mystery. That it wasn't their fault. They didn't understand. And this new diet doctor discovered this little special intricacy. Well, by the way, they sell you a supplement for it. And, people fall into that type of conspiracy theory all the time. It's the stupid food. Just understand that the human being is a starch eater. Always has been, always will be. And that animal foods are, well, up until modern times, they were really difficult to get. With modern times, with transportation, energy, with the discovery of fossil fuels, the Industrial Revolution, we changed it so that the average person in the world can eat like a king and queen. Half the population, 4 billion people, either eat like or strive to eat like Americans, and they have succeeded most of the time. If you've traveled around the world these days to countries where there was no obesity, like in Vietnam or Thailand or Cambodia or Japan or China, no obesity back before 1980. None, zero, period. If you travel around these days, you find McDougall's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Taco Bell in every major city in the country.
Yep.
And people want to be like Americans. So they eat the food, they look like Americans. I watch newscasts these days and I can't tell until somebody mentions where they're at, or I recognize some of the architecture. I can't tell whether they're Americans or Europeans or even Asians. So it has become a worldwide pandemic of sickness due to food poisoning. And the food poisons are animal foods and oils. 2 categories, animal foods and oils. You stop eating them and you get well, period. You have to eat starch, rice, corn, potatoes, beans, peas, lentils, breads and pastas. You have to eat that. You've got to eat that. That's your food.
Speaking of which, when I do nothing but starch, I actually start gaining weight. But when I do mostly fruit and then starch at night, the weight comes off. So whenever I saw you talk about the diabetes 1.5, I was wondering, or type 1.5, I was wondering if I had something along those lines, because I also read Barnard's book, The Genetic Code, or whatever that book was. And he said that fruit basically doesn't use insulin to digest. And I was wondering if I had something along those lines.
If you were losing too much weight, then I would worry about type 1.5 diabetes, because if your diabetes is not controlled, you lose weight. Insulin pushes fat into fat cells. If your blood sugar rises, it even gets to the point where it spills the sugar through the kidneys into the toilet. So you lose calories that way. So you don't have type 1.5 diabetes until you get a blood test and prove otherwise. The claim that you have that you lose weight on a single starch, it's not been my experience.
No.
And I've had a lot of people who've challenged me, and they say, "Oh, but you don't understand me, doc. I got an eating disorder. I'm an obsessive compulsive overeater. I got a psychiatric illness." And I point to a bushel basket full of potatoes, and I said, "Prove it. Prove it. Just eat that, and I'll see you in a week." I don't think so.
No.
So I don't know what you're doing or what's going on. There's a couple of circumstances where people do gain weight, though, and these may apply to you or some of your listeners. One is through the pain of starvation. You really get scared. And if you starve, people who go through prolonged starvations, like people who are in occupied countries and the dictators have taken the food away from them, or in prisoner of war camps, or in the famous experiment, the Minnesota starvation experiment done by Anson Keyes. What happens is because of that pain of starvation, you react after food is available by something we term hyperphagia, which merely means overeating. And you'll gain about 10% of your body weight until you make adjustments. And adjustments are not gaining extra body fat or extra body weight back, but you've got to bring to health your fat-free organs, which is your liver and your spleen and your kidneys and muscles and so on. Once they regain their previous strength and function, then you stop the hyperphagia. It just goes away. Now, some people, they develop a fear of food, of starving, of hunger, just by intermittent dieting. And they go through 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of suffering. And they come out of that suffering with food available, and they go, whoa, I've got to compensate, and they develop hyperphagia. The other thing that people do to gain weight is they come to our program having been on a starvation diet or a keto diet. And then what they've done is they've depleted their glycogen stores, which are the stores of chains of sugar in your liver and muscles. And these chains of sugar are there because they supply immediate energy for you if you need to chase your 2-year-old around or you need to run a race. That's where you get the energy from, is from glycogen.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't eat sugar, glucose, glycogen, you don't eat any sugar, starch I'm talking about, then what happens is on a starvation program or a keto diet, low carb diet, you end up depleting your glycogen stores, which is about 2 pounds of glycogen. With every pound of glycogen comes along 2 pounds of water, kind of mixed together. So when you go off of these glycogen deprivation programs, dieting, intermittent starvation, keto diet, and you start eating normal, healthy, the American diet with all that carbohydrate in it, you replenish your glycogen stores, which means you gain 6, 8, 10, 12 pounds from glycogen and water that you replenish. So in that way you gain weight too. But otherwise, I give as a testament to this, the fact that there were, before 1980, 2 billion Asians. Nobody was overweight.
Nobody.
You could visit a town square, you see 100,000 people. I lived through the Vietnamese conflict. I was peripherally involved. You look through a town square of 100,000 Vietnamese or Thailand people. Nobody's overweight. Nobody. Not even the ministers, the teachers, the shop clerks, people who aren't physically active. They're all trim. But once they go on the Western diet, as you see, particularly in the business people and the politicians, they gain weight just like Americans do. It's not a race issue. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Nothing to do with where you live geographically. It has everything to do with foods available. So.
One of the last questions I have is, some people say that once they start eating this way, or even have eaten this way, their glucose is always extremely high. I had one person actually write that it went up to 279.
Well,
what would cause that?
what causes that is the immediate change in diet. You see, when you're on a low carb diet, you're eating foods that have no sugar in them. Meat has no sugar. Cheese, 2% of the calories are sugar. So you're eating a diet that has no sugar, so you have no rise in blood sugar. Okay, that's not right, because rise in blood sugar is what happens to replenish your calories.
Yeah.
To feed your cells. The sugar is supposed to go up. That's the intention of eating, is to raise the blood sugar. So when you switch from a diet where you're eating all no sugar foods to the diet we recommend that has lots of sugar in it, 93% of the calories could be sugar in the form of starch or sugar. What happens is the blood sugar goes up. But that's only a temporary thing until the insulin resistance goes away. Then what happens is they lose the extra weight, and that encourages a stable low blood sugar. So if you're in it for the short run, in other words, what your blood sugar is tomorrow, don't go on our program. If you're interested in getting a cure of your diabetes, then you go on our program. Because the first few days may be a little rocky compared to what you know. Doesn't trouble me at all. Ryan, I personally taken care of, I told you, 12,000 people.
Yeah.
6,000 I'm in a clinic situation where I basically live with them. And I can tell you, I have to take them off their drugs. Day one, I'll take people off 140 units of insulin. Wow. Day one, for fear that they're going to develop hypoglycemia if I don't. So if I don't adequately reduce their medications, they're likely to get into trouble. So I have to be prepared to stop all their pills, which I usually do, and to stop all their insulin or most of their insulin, which I usually do, depending upon whether I think they're a type 1 or a type 2 diabetic. A type 1 diabetic always requires insulin. So don't get that wrong. And type 1.5, they benefit from having a little insulin. But I do it real simple. I don't do it with any of these pumps and injection setups and so on, all this high-tech stuff. Stuff that just hurts people. They get tied to a pump. Their whole life is a pump.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I take them off all these silly things. I'm a simple country doctor, Ryan. So you're not going to take the country doctor out of the doctor.
Yeah. You hear that this term insulin resistance used quite a bit these days. How long would you think it would take somebody to get insulin sensitive again if they were really bad?
Few days. Yeah, I think so. There are a lot of that. Some of that insulin sensitivity comes back as they lose weight. So maybe till they get down to trim body weight. But once you start on a course of not gaining weight, the reason the body gains weight and develops insulin sensitivity is to stop the weight gain. It's okay to gain 20, 30 pounds getting ready for the fall and winter when there's no food available. That's okay. That's survival.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to gain 100, 200, 500 pounds. That's against your survival. So when you cross that threshold where a little extra fat will help you get through the winter to where a lot of extra fat will get you eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, then when you cross that threshold, the cells become insensitive to insulin. We know what happens on the cells. They develop the receptors, they become less active.
Yeah.
And you can see these changes take place. So that's insulin resistance. It's a normal adjustment to being too fat. It's not a disease. It's an adjustment. Something the body does to survive or to best survive. And I've seen people, and I will just bring it up for you because you told me you were 175 pounds heavier than you are now, or 150 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a substantial amount of weight. I would bring up to you the possibility that I've seen people, not many, but a few in my practice over the years, who've been like 600 pounds in body weight. And I've seen people on TV that where the forklift comes up and picks them up out of their bed, takes them to the hospital. They weighed over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So what happens is there's some people who don't develop insulin resistance. Most of us, we develop it after 30, 40, 50 pounds. Insulin becomes ineffective, blood sugar goes up, fat stops being driven into fat cells. That's the way it's supposed to work. But some don't develop insulin resistance, so they just keep gaining and gaining. But I want to tell you, these 600, 700, 800-pound individuals, they don't have high blood pressure. They don't have rotten arteries. They don't have a higher risk of cancer. They may have trouble with their lower extremity joints because of carrying around that extra poundage. But otherwise, they're not sick in any way. And that kind of surprises people when they realize, oh boy, I bet this person's diabetic. I bet this person has high blood pressure. I bet this person has high cholesterol. And I scan this person, I bet they'll have rotten arteries. And they don't.
Yeah.
But they're 500, 600, 700 pounds. Insulin has a way of encouraging high blood pressure, artery disease, etc. So, we don't know all the details, but I know enough to know how to react. And that is that if somebody who has the tendency to not develop insulin resistance, and that again may apply to you to somewhat, you've got to follow a starch-based diet to get over this, because as you have done, you've lost the weight. It will, even the insulin resistance you have will not be a barrier to you getting back to your term weight and your health that you want. It doesn't happen. But if you eat the Western diet, you're sunk.
Yeah. So what about, last question, I guess, fatty liver. How long do you think something like a fatty liver might take to, I guess,
it probably is reflected by the same amount of body fat you have. As you lose the fat under your skin, so the fat in the abdominal viscera goes away also. So I would say that, you have a good gauge as to how long it's going to weigh based upon how long it takes you to get rid of the extra fat. Because you store the fat. You store it somewhat indiscriminately. You store it all over the body. You store it in the abdomen, the thigh, the buttocks, store it around your heart, store it in the liver, store it in the abdominal viscera. I mean, if you do surgery, that's what I used to do. I was a surgical nurse for many years. So I put myself through medical school. I've been on thousands of operations, not exaggerating. And you split an abdomen on somebody who's, physically overweight. Once you get inside that belly, you're looking at same amount of fat. Just looking at loads of lard inside the belly. So in answer to your question, it's a matter of total fat distribution. And the liver's not going to go away at any faster rate than is the body fat. Maybe a little bit. Well, maybe the liver has a bit of compensation. So if you're still 10, 15, 20 pounds overweight, it's enough to get the liver cleared of enough of fat so it's not inflamed anymore. But don't give up until you've reached term body weight. How much did I tell you your term body weight was, Ryan? I told you 150 pounds.
150, 155, something like that. That's too skinny for me. I don't want to get down to that weight.
I've heard that over and over again. And I'll tell you, it's rare that somebody can keep an extra 10, 15 pounds of muscle on. You got to keep working really hard to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now you're in a situation where, especially when you weigh 150 more, can you imagine me carrying around 150 pounds all day long to go to the bathroom, to go to the grocery store? I mean, what a tremendous amount of physical exercise that would be.
It is. Yeah. Just think of how much extra exercise you get, though.
Yeah, you do.
For free.
That's why overweight people have less osteoporosis. They have stronger bones. Because when you're overweight, you develop higher estrogen levels in your body. Because fat cells make estrogen, so you become feminized. You probably noticed how many of these men walking around their T-shirts could wear brasiers.
Yeah.
They have breasts. That's because they become feminized from the Western diet. But anyway, as you lose the weight, you'll see all the things that I'm talking about happen, and you may still maintain a muscle mass, which people will finally get to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, your listeners hold me to it. If you follow a starch-based diet, you eliminate the free oils and the nuts and seeds and avocados. Even if you don't exercise, you'll get down to that weight. No eating out.
No, I don't eat. I haven't eaten out. No, years. It's been years. All right. So I guess that's about all the questions I have. I did want to say that one of my favorite videos of yours is a video where you went into almost like a Ponderosa type thing, and you were at a buffet getting a bunch of stuff, and that woman was bringing you plates of food, and you said, even if I did eat all of this, I wouldn't gain any weight from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is the what I used to have a show which played in 95% of the households. I had it for 5 years. It was called McDougall MD. And Lifestyle Magazine, I was on that show for almost 40 years, still am. It plays at 95% of the households. And those old McDougall shows that we did for this TV show are on my website. We are on the YouTube channel, Go to McDougall channel. And you'll find them there. And yeah, we did a bunch of different shows, including the one at the pizza parlor, where we said at Pizza Hut, I think we were at. The waitress came up and I told her what I wanted to eat. And I told her no cheese.
Yeah.
And she hollers out, "Charlie, we have another weirdo out here." We had a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dr. McDougall, for joining me.
Right.
I really don't have any other questions, I don't think. Oh, you know what? The one thing that I did want to mention, and then I'll let you go, is you've mentioned the Con study quite a bit. And so I looked it up, and they were actually eating 1,900 calories of fat a day on that Con study, and they still ended up losing weight.
Right. That's the all potato diet published in 1928 by Con. But they did. And I think the reason they fed them the fat is because they were so physically active. I mean, these were marathon runners.
Yeah.
And they didn't want them to lose too much weight. But what they say in the article, which is very important, I encourage you to look it up. It's by Con, Kon, and you put it in Con and all potato diet. It's a 1928 publication. It's about a woman who's 26 and a man who's believed 23 or 24. And they're marathon runners. That's what they do. And they housed them in a physical setting where they had full control over what they ate. And they fed them a diet, an all potato diet, except for they gave them fat because they didn't want to lose too much weight. All the protein, all the vitamins and minerals, et cetera, came from potatoes. That was the point of the study. And the fact that you brought up that they fed them a ton of animal fat, actually.
Yeah.
And they still lost they lost weight. But I think the important thing is that they said they did not tire of the all potato diet after 6 months. And there was no sign of any deficiency, particularly protein. Those are two statements made at the end of that article that you're going to look up, Con.
Yeah, I'll link it down below. I've linked it in quite a few videos. Yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah, well, it's an important study because so many people say potatoes will make you fat, or potatoes don't have enough protein, or all kinds of silly stuff. After all, populations of people throughout history have the potato to credit the fact that their people survived.
Yeah.
It's been it's a tremendous source of nutrition. If I had available one starch, I'd pick a potato.
Yeah, 100%. Every single one of the studies, if you look them up, the potato studies, though, they did all have a lot of fat in them. Like the Himity, the Soviet, the Russian, the Irish studies. I mean, they all had a fair bit of fat, and they all lost weight. They all gained health again. Not that I'm saying it's kind of like the fry diet, like French fry diet, but it's I was surprised because I've looked all of these things up. I wanted to talk about them in videos over the years, and it's one consistent. It's potatoes and fat, and they were fine.
Well, it's because they were all very physically active people. And besides, they didn't have the concept of the detriment of fat that we have these days. Can you imagine if I offered a diet with 20% fat in it? I'd get no success at all. Weight loss is one of the real issues of the people I deal with.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad to see that you look up the scientific studies that I take such great effort putting in
Yeah.
and hopefully accurately cite. Do you find that I distort the science, Brian? Do you find that I
Just with the
over-exaggerate?
con study, you said that they started off without fat and then they added it in, but they actually added it in from the first day. And that's why I wanted to add that. It was the 1900 calories worth of fat that they started with the first day. And they were making them like a potato fritter in the beginning. And they said that they didn't want that anymore, that they wanted mashed potatoes, but they were still adding either butter or oil with it.
But you have to remember how physically active these people were.
Yeah.
It was hard enough, like I say, they said they did not tire of the all potato diet. And besides, the study is titled the all potato diet, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
Okay. So I don't recall saying that they started with a low fat diet, but I may have. I doubt it.
I put it in the video.
I just don't talk about the added fat in the diet. I
Yeah.
just talk about things.
All right.
Because to me, that's the important part, is the nutritional adequacy of potatoes. And the other thing you got to think about, Ryan, and I'm sure you've run this through your mind, is that when you add fat, let's just say half, you mentioned something about half the calories came from fat.
Yeah.
When you add fat, how much protein do you add?
No.
What happens to the protein from the potatoes?
It doesn't go up.
It gets cut in half.
Okay. You think
All
that's
right.
what it is?
Well, every nutrient, every vitamin, every dietary fiber, every protein, every essential fat that is contributed by potatoes is cut in half by making half the diet saturated fat. The purpose of this study is to prove the adequacy of a potato.
Yeah.
So if you really think about it, adding the fat actually showed you how the potato provided twice as many nutrients as you needed, obviously, because when you cut it in half,
That's true.
you still maintain excellent health. So I don't think in any way that the title of the article or my presentation of it in any way misrepresented the purpose of the study.
Oh, I wasn't saying that at all. I just thought it was nuts to me. I can't even imagine eating 2,000 calories of fat a day.
Well, if you ran a marathon every day or trained,
I guess I get it. Yeah.
You don't want to do that, Ryan.
What's that?
You don't want to do that. Don't do that.
No, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not supporting a French fry diet. I just thought it was kind of crazy how much. Anyway, I think that's all the questions I had.
All right. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me. And
make sure you tell people that, we're there to help them. We run a 12-day worldwide telemedicine, teleeducation program that any of them can participate in. Just go to the website, and on the website is the McDougall diet, absolutely free for you to do it. And lots of time to spend on YouTube with lectures that I've given.
Yeah, you've got
it was
hundreds.
To talk to you, Ryan. You're obviously a very smart guy.
Yep.
You put in the work.
I do.
I wish half who interviewed me had taken the trouble that you've taken to prepare for this.
Yeah. I couldn't wait to talk to you. So I wanted to jot a bunch of stuff down, but thank you for joining me. Comments, questions, down below, like always. And I'll link all of his everything down in the description section. I'll probably pin it in the comment section. And thanks for watching.
Well, good luck for you. Like I say, we're building an army. It's nice to have you on.
Exactly.
All right.